Everybody, how are we all? Hope you're doing well. Welcome to our Wednesday live stream. Rod here from the Underpainting Academy. Right, we're going to work on a bigger piece, which we won't be finishing, but we'll certainly look at making a start with that. So that's what we'll be doing. I'll walk you through the project in a minute. But first, let us say good morning to people. Good morning, Sharon in New Zealand. Morning, Gail. Morning, Gay. Morning, Margaret. Transplanted from Las Vegas. Well, I hope that didn't hurt. Morning, Patty. Morning, Jenny. Morning, Janet. Morning, Marg. Morning, Sajada. G'day, Peter. Morning, Marie. Morning, Terry. Morning, Cheryl. Morning, Robert. Morning, Linda. Morning, Sandy B. And g'day, Colin. In sunny Wollongong, good to hear. G'day, John. Good morning. And g'day, Carleen. Hopefully our stream will be better than the last time. And it will all be good. G'day, Linda. And good morning, Kay. How are you, Dale? Morning, Rosalie. Manuela. And Yvonne, good morning. Good morning, Barbara. And good morning, Tracy. Okay, well, morning, Sonia in sunny Melbourne. Good to hear. G'day, Pam. 12 weeks in lockdown. Pam, you must. All right, so what we're going to do is, years ago, when I was filming the TV show Yes You Can Paint TV, we went down to a place called Gibson Steps, which so that's probably nearly 9 years ago I did this painting. And as you can see, my colours are a bit murky, a bit grey, but I've always liked it as a subject and thought it'd be nice to revisit. On and off stream, yeah. I've got a feeling it's Vimeo who we stream through, and I don't know that there's anything I can do about that just now. So I'm pressing I've got it on record, and I'll make it available in the members area, but I don't think there's anything I can do. So I'll just push on. This was the other one that I did, which, come back from there, there we go. So I did a couple of paintings of it back then, never quite happy with them, so I found one on the internet, which is this one here. So I kind of like this composition, and I'll probably change it up a little bit from that, but that's the composition that we are going to use. I'm just going to focus in today on really big shapes and composition. I think when we look at how to improve your painting, then the number one way for most of us is to really focus in on composition and design and big shapes. That's the one thing that I see so many people struggling with and having problems with, is just getting those big shapes in the right spot, and yeah, making sure you've got the design right before you start. Because if you start with the design wrong, then you know, the painting's not going to work. So we have to get the design right, composition right at the very beginning. Okay, so if we come down to the palette here. Just going to use, I probably will use more advanced palette for this one. Because I'm going to do this as a painting that I'm going to probably make available for sale. So I'll use a more advanced palette than what we might normally use. And as I said, today is really about just getting design and composition right. So I've got my ultramarine blue, I've got my alizarin crimson and my yellow ochre. They're my three base colours, right? And then I've got, I guess it's like a, it's called a primary blue. Then I've got a phthalo green, and I've got a burnt sienna and titanium white. And first up, just going to focus on getting our drawing in right. Getting our composition right. Now in the painting that I did 9 or so years ago, if we have a look at this, you can see that I've got my horizon line about from the bottom. There we go. But in the photo reference, you can see it's around about halfway, which opens up that whole area for the reflections in the wet sand, which I like. Okay, so the sort of horizon line in the photo is around about halfway up, which is not a good natural spot to put it, but I think it works with this composition. So the base of that cliff on the right hand side is below the halfway mark, but the one at the back is probably just under the halfway mark, somewhere around there. So the most important thing before I get you really into painting this is going to be making sure I just get the shapes right. And the most important shapes obviously are the cliffs here. And then I'll play around with this photo because the photo, I like the design of it, but what I'll do is I'll put more shadow and light onto the rock faces. I'm just going to start out with a blue. Maybe I'll use a little bit of that primary blue. And I want to try and create plenty of atmosphere into the back here. So when we go back to that distant headland there, I want to try and get plenty of atmosphere into it. Doesn't come out as far as what we'd think it would. Somewhere there. So I'm using really thin paint here so that I don't overcommit to anything. Now if I look at how far across I've come already, and this is what I talk about, like the biggest area for improvement for most of us is without a doubt getting our shapes in correctly, right? If I look at how far across I've come here, I'm almost at the halfway mark here, right? But if you look at that photo, it's only about a quarter of the way or a third of the way across for that second cliff there. So I'm too far across. So all design is out. Can you see that? Hopefully you can. So I'll just wipe it back and have another. In not the design and composition right and the big shapes right, and this is why I really emphasize it and stress it today, because I improve when we start to get this right. getting that wet sand in there. Okay, which then has these reflections in here. So bring that up further and I'll get more reflection in there. Okay, it's feeling a bit better. This distant hill comes out this way past the halfway mark. So it's going to come out somewhere around about there. Let's see. So it rises up there, comes down. Give it the feeling that it's set back further. And then there's a couple of rocks right there. So yeah, in the past I've not paid anywhere near enough attention to just getting my design right. But I know that for me in particular, better designs, better compositions, better subjects is going to make my painting overall a lot better. So from these rocks, the water goes kind of that way. There's some foamy water coming in to about there, and then it runs out there. So that's all foamy water there. Okay, and then we've got this main rock. Obviously the shape of the main rock is important. I better get my glasses for that. You can see the high tide mark on these rocks. I can do about the buffering, either put up with it, watch it on the replay in the members area, because I'm recording it, so the recording should come out a lot better. The canvas is a 20 inch by 28 inch canvas. This here has to be, probably wants to be not quite in line with the bottom of this one, but it's definitely got to be lower than the background one. I'm probably a little bit too low. Maybe it needs to be around about there. It seems that I've been using Vimeo as the they host all of our videos for the members area, but also been streaming through them. And the last couple of times, although we didn't have any problems with the last advanced live stream, but the last couple of, probably because I stopped streaming to Facebook, it'll work better. Now the top of this one is roughly in line with the top of that one, this mountain here. Now this is a very well known sort of rock formation here, Gibson Steps. whilst you don't probably need to just getting that right. Okay, and then we're going to have this reflection there, and then there's a little bit of reflection of this one in here. So that's why I like this composition, because it has this nice wet sand area, and it's reflecting these different rock formations beautifully. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put all this partly in shadow on this one, and then partly in shadow and then light. So I'm going to make this light pattern up, and hopefully it'll work. So you can imagine like the late afternoon sun setting from over here. It is more rectangular. It's a 20-inch by 28-inch canvas. So it's definitely more a rectangle shape. Try and push the lighting on this, which isn't in the photos, but that's okay. A little bit that goes there like that. And then we've got the horizon line of the ocean there. And look, most of this in here is just whitewash. Tricky to paint, but we'll figure it out. So, it's a good idea to pause at this stage. And just make sure that you're happy with the composition. One thing I think I've slightly out with is this shape here. It comes up a little bit, but not that much, I don't think. And it dips down that way, there. Of course, I haven't completed the composition because there's clouds and things in here, and they're obviously an important part of it. Do I do the clouds as I see them in this photo, or do I just make up my own clouds? I think I might make up my own clouds actually. Clouds, and we'll try and just blur that horizon line, so I've got a bit of a hazy atmosphere back there. Now in the photo, this looks like it's sitting up higher on the horizon line, so something's not quite right in my drawing. Yeah. It's going to go like that. Let's pop in a few little rocks around the base there. All right. depth into here and really make this feel like it's way up in the distance. So we're going to use all that we know about aerial perspective to do that. And I'm going to take this to the blocking stage today. And I'll let it sit. As I said, I'm going to, if this one turns out okay, I'll be putting it in my online galleries for sale. So take our time with it. Okay. First off, we need a dark. So to get it dark, we mix our 3 primaries together. It's quite a big area, so I'm going to need a fair bit of paint. Now the trick with this is I'm going to put all this in dark here and here, right? But it can't just be a big massive dark. It just won't. In here, so warmer up the top there. Okay. So this is going to be my don't make it a perfectly smooth edge at the top there. The name of the location is Gibson Steps, and if you Google it, you'll find tons of different photos of it. It's a famous location in Victoria. So just Google Gibson Steps, Great Ocean Road. Okay. Right. Get a bit cooler for down in the bottom there. Okay, now there are you can see the sort of like outline of the cliff. So what I'll do, I'll just get a bit of paper towel and I'll just pull out a little bit of that paint in there. A little bit of this burnt sienna. That's a little too bright, but I'll leave it there for the moment, and I may tone it back later on. Difficult to know. When we get a light sky and light sand around it, it may look right. But at the moment it looks a little too bright. Whoa. Okay, so now I'm going to come back to logical step back in distance to here. That sort of tone there is what I would be thinking potentially for out there. See the definite distance jump there? It kind of feels right at about that spot there. But for this one here, we just need to come in a little bit darker. So a bit more blue and red into the mix. A bit of yellow. So I just want a subtle jump. It has to be a definite step back. For it to work. Let's check that out. We're going to use the same brush. I want to make sure I've got it properly cleaned, because it'll have the dark tone in there that I used previously. So that's what I used in the first mix, right there. Ground there. Let's just test that. So yeah, you can see there's definite step back. So that'll help give us that separation and distance that we're looking for. We got touch bluer actually. There we go, it's better. Which means that that's not quite right. This is why we always start with our darkest dark first, so we can set up our values pattern properly. fairly and things in here a little bit more defined. So now we're going to need to have a big jump back to that. So the tone that I thought that I was mixing this one in here, it's just not quite right. Let's just pull that out. So it definitely wants to be bluer. But what I can do, I'll use some of this cooler blue into that mix. Okay, now normally I wouldn't do that on a Wednesday live stream. Try and keep it simple, but today we're doing it different. So lighten that right off. So you can see it's kind of bluey grey. This needs a little touch of warmth in there. And I've got all that paint in this brush here, so you want to make sure you get that cleaned up first. Get the previous tone out of the brush, unless you switch to a new brush. But what I'll do is I'll just get that brush nice and clean, get the previous tone out of there. And our most important next step is to test, because you can never quite tell on your palette. So we'll just scoop up a little bit like that. Grey, we'll come up here and we'll test, and that's looking better than what I put down there before. It's looking a bit truer in colour. We'll add a little bit on the grey side. And what I'll do is I'm either going to cool it or I'm going to warm it just to give it a bit more life. If it goes to a neutral grey, it just means that we've got just the ratio of temperature. Well, actually, yeah, it's the temperature really is the thing that we need to adjust. Okay, and then we need to warm that mix up. It's in place first. Tones over the top of all of this. Just right, just now. It's really more about the shadow tone that I want to get, so that I can set up the values pattern. This might be a little bit too dark. See what happens as soon as you add that white to it, it cools it right down. All right. Temptation would be to paint this too light. I'm going to put light highlights onto this. But if you paint it too bright and light, that's going to come forward, right? So sometimes we have to step away from the photo and use our knowledge of how do we create a feeling of depth into a painting to make it feel further away. Okay, so that brings us to here, which is really, it's more this value here. Let's just see. It's got to feel closer to us than the background. More like up there. Anchor that in with white foam around it. Okay. Kind of have a feeling. Let's just see. Again, I'm just painting the background tones in here. I'm not trying to get to the highlight on it. doesn't quite feel right. Okay. All right. Feels like it's working. Get some lighter tones around it, and these will look a lot darker than what they actually are. Just going to pause for a couple of seconds. See if you've got any questions. If you want to type in questions. Yeah, I know it's freezing. I think I might just give up doing live streams. They seem to have nothing but problems and people get upset, so I might just stop doing them and just do recorded stuff. But if anyone does have a question, then feel free to type it in now. It's working okay, says Al. Okay, that's good. Doesn't appear to be working okay on my end. It's definitely Vimeo, because when you look at the recording, it's not my computer, so it's the Vimeo service, so, which I pay a bloody fortune for, so that's very annoying. I think it's because I'm streaming into our members area and to 2 different Facebook channels and YouTube, so I think what we'll do for next live stream is only stream to the members area, because that's because I'm trying to stream out to so many locations, it seems like Vimeo struggles to do that. Paddy, yes, it's yeah, get some steps. It's just nearby. Same general area. All right. If you have any other questions, reflecting these two here, a little reflection from the background here. It's not as definite. Make a few little marks. Really just a placeholder to remind me to indicate it there. And from here to here. Pop that in, and of course I'll tighten it up, pull it back a bit. There's also a little bit in here. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to block in the sand in the dry sand areas. What am I going to do in there? Pull that down in there. Yeah, we'll do the dry sand area. and then I'll switch to the sky, and then we'll stop about there, I think, for today. So the dry sand area is actually quite orange. Quite an orange tone. Yellow ochre, always a good starting point. Just a little bit of the photo. Yeah, no, it's definitely my printer. We've got to be careful of that. It's not as orange as what it looks like on my printout. Because I'm painting off a printout. I'm not seeing what you're seeing on the screen as the photo reference. And lately my printer has been printing everything with a tinge of red, which, you know, I look at it and I think, oh, that's very orange. But when I just looked in the monitor, it doesn't look that orange. So I'll probably go a touch oranger for the underpainting, and then we'll paint over it. Okay, so there's no real special technique with this. I'm going to paint it fairly thin initially. Bugger. I think that's going to be all whitewash in there, or wet sand. It's wet sand in there. So we got that runs up to there, run that there, run that there. Blur this edge up in here. Okay, definitely don't want a hard edge there. All right. Big question is going to be, do we put people here? A couple of people? Don't know. Don't know. Probably not. I think the scene is too grand a scene to worry about the likes of Bob and Mary and anybody else. Okay, and I was going to take that down to a point there. That there. The only thing that really worries me about this painting, it scares me a little, and I think that's good. If you're not scared by a subject, then you know, maybe you're playing it a bit too safe, is the white water. You feel you're not really sure how to tackle it, is to put it off till another day. I've probably got, yeah, I've got that area there. That should push more into there. Should it not? Yes, it should. So that's a design shape issue. See, I come down with my sand into here. That should be wet sand there, right? So that's a design issue, and that's what I really wanted to focus on today with this subject, because it is a tricky subject if you don't really concentrate on the shapes. So we're going to pick these things up as we go. Okay, so all that in there should not be there. I mean, there is an argument to say if we're going to do wet sand that I should probably put a sand tone under it first. And you could argue that. And we have done it that way in the past. That also comes down, but that's not bothering me quite so much, or is it? I'll pull it out a little bit. Can't remember what I was saying. Can't have been important. I'll warm it up as it comes closer to us. It's starting to get a good feel to it. And I think it's going to be a nice little painting when it's finished. In fact, I might even use this as a reference for doing an even bigger version of this, because I think it's such a grand scene. It probably lends itself to a nice big version, maybe 1 metre by something or other. I've started doing the Brian Cook paintings much bigger than the demo versions, and I'm really enjoying the freedom of the big canvas, to be honest. Warming up the sand as it comes towards us. Why am I doing that? Because if you've done our colour mixing course, or you understand aerial perspective at all, you'll know that warmer colours will come forward and the cooler colours, blues, and that will make it feel like it's further away. So it's just basic aerial perspective. Colour temperature is important. Alright, now, what time is it? 10 o'clock. I'm using water mixable oils at the moment. Now. Now, we are going to before we wrap it up for today, I'm going to get the lower part of the sky in, because I don't like the way I've mucked that up. And it'll just help me cut in around these shapes. Speaking of shapes, I don't like the way I've got these hard angular lines here. Okay, so I'm just going to break that line. So I've got this line. I'm going to break that line, push that out like so a bit more. We'll definitely fix that up as we progress the painting a little bit more. Okay, so yeah, sky. Take a soft brush. I'm going to take a chunk of white. I'm going to take some of this primary blue. It's like a cerulean type of blue. I don't often use a second blue, but sometimes I'll add one in. Now, like, that's just a terrible tone for me, so I'll add a bit of yellow into it. Yellow ochre. That's a little bit too much yellow. I'll get a bit more blue back into it. It's already a yellowy blue anyway, but what I'm trying to do is just grey it back a bit with a bit of yellow and red. So that's fairly green. ultramarine blue in there as well. When you start using the two blues, there we go, that's a bit better, together, it makes the ultramarine look really purplish, which I thought was interesting. Could always grab a little bit of this neutral grey there. There we go, that's better. I just want a bluey grey tone with just a hint of warmth to it, which is never an easy tone to get to. That may or may not be right, but we'll see. If I use enough water, I'll be able to adjust it. Okay, because this is really bugging me. Around that. So I'm not using the photo reference for the sky, I'm just going to do the sky what feels right for what I've already got up on the canvas here. Those of you who have been tone there. Sometimes I wish I was ambidextrous. Which brush? The brush. Oh, look at me go with my left hand. Just obviously don't have the same level of confidence, but... Oh. Don't paint your sky in first, right? Use your sky. Okay, okay. Fairly hard lines along there. It probably wants to be softer than that, but I think just for making sure we've got our shapes right. as we progress. All right, I'll just scrape some of this in here. Probably got a little bit of shape issue in there. It's actually not sticking out quite that far on its own, but I do like it. So do I have to be completely true to the subject, or do I just exaggerate that little part there? I think for the moment I'm going to leave it because I'm liking it. But who knows? Who knows? Um, I have to have a think about what I'm going to do with the sky. So at the moment I'm just going to just block in deeper blue. I like this bluey green for this type of scene because for those who know the Great Ocean Road, you'll note quite often when I was younger there was always howling wind and freezing cold, so this cooler blue in the sky just help me remember that feel. Touch of the yellow. Okay, very different from the photo. but I'm not a photographer. So I might, look at this tomorrow and just absolutely hate this sky. But then again, I might not. Who's to know? Might be a reflection of the overall mood of things in Victoria at the moment. Right, I'm going to leave it there. It's one to contemplate over a cup of tea, over travelling. One thing that sort of worries me is I've got this line up here where everything's sort of on this line right there. Might need to push that sand back into here maybe. Push that out to there. Bring that down in through there. It's actually, there's very little yeah. You know what I'm going to do? I think I need to extend this sand into here. And then we'll stop. Just to get a wet sand underpaint there. Then I'm going to put the reflection of the sky over the top of that. So just to be clear, where am I talking about? In here. Touch too dark. And that's where the foam is there. Okay. It's a pretty radical move, Rod. What do you think you're doing? Well, it just felt like it'll give me a better base to work from when I come to put in that sky reflection. It's got to go over the top of something. Well, we'll see. It may have been a big mistake, but I don't think it was. All right. We shall leave it there. Just contemplating a few things. But, really, I think this tone in here is what the underpainting for the water will be. And then just a lot of white foam over the top of that. That's for another day. If you have any last questions, then feel free to fire away. Starting to look alive with the sky. Thank you. You like the sky? That's good. The green's just a little bit... Cerulean blue is a greenish sort of blue. Anybody have any last minute questions before we wrap up? No live stream tomorrow. Don't know about Friday at this point. Last minute questions. Here's what I'm working off, but I googled some steps, so I just googled Gibson Steps Great Ocean Road, and this one came up. But there's tons of different photos there, so lots of different sort of takes on this, different lighting effects, so go and grab one that you like the look of and have a go at it. Pardon me for drinking water. Any last minute questions? Thanks, Colin. I've made it all a bit murky in there now. If you actually look at the photo, this part of the reflection is more definite than these reflections. So even I've made it a bit murky, but that's all right. That is all right. So here we go. No worries, Teresa. Glad you're liking it. Well, I'm pretty sure the recording will turn out better. So for those who got frustrated watching the live, you can log into the members area later on today, and I'm pretty sure the recording will be better. So if there's no questions, unless there's a big lag time. Where are we? What size is your canvas? It's 20 inches by 28 inches, this one. But I'm actually thinking of blowing it up into an even bigger one because it's quite a good subject. And I think it would lend itself well to maybe a metre by something. Metre by 600 or something. So if you missed the start, I I first had a go at doing Gibson steps about 9 years ago, and you can see my paints were a little bit murky. I was using a cheap quality paint as well, and that makes a big difference. And probably my approach wasn't quite right. I didn't put this first headline in here, so compositionally, you don't get that sort of stepping back effect. I tried to create it by going much bluer and lighter here, right? But you don't really get that third step, whereas I think this is a much better composition with this really strong dark, then that one, then that one. So it gives you 3 steps back into the distance, and I think that's a better composition. But that was my effort about 9 years ago. Over the years and see how you've improved. How can you work? Well, Teresa's asking how she can work in a black grey water. Well, you can either paint it true to how it is, or you can adjust it to something that is more pleasing. It's really a choice that you have to make. If it was me, I wouldn't want to be painting black grey water. So I'd be adjusting. So maybe a case of picking a different subject, or just exaggerating the warmer, brighter colours in it, possibly. It depends on what sort of effect you want to get. If you want to go for more of a realism, then you'll have to paint it closer to what it is. All right. They are quite large, Paddy, yeah. When will we finish this? Not sure, Connie, to be honest. I don't know what plan we'll be doing with. So I'll let you know. I may film myself finishing it off of the Learn to Paint Academy. That might make more sense while I try and get to the bottom of the live stream issues.